Honestly, even when we are doing good deeds, we forget Allah. How often does it happen, right? That we are praying our salah, the imam is leading salah, and then you finish and you're like, wait, what surah did he just read? So even in our good deeds, we forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah knows how we are. He knows that we are forgetful. And scholars, they say, al-insanu min nisyan, that the word human comes from the word nisyan, forgetfulness. Because we are created to forget. That's how our brains are. But it's a blessing to forget. It is a blessing to have a memory that fails sometimes. Can you imagine, what if you remembered everything in your life? Man, how many of us would get a comfortable, peaceful night's rest? I highly doubt it. We would think back to all the times that we messed up, all the bad things that we ever said, all the times that people have hurt our feelings, all the opportunities we missed. I wish I had done this and I hadn't done that. We would just sit there replaying all of these things. And people who struggle with that today, they can't sleep. People who do what? Overthinking, who are guilt-ridden, or people who are just dealing with severe anxiety. Because they're just sitting around thinking, if. Why did I do this? Why did I say this? Why did this happen? Why did that happen? Why? Because they're just sitting there replaying everything. Those are things you are meant to forget. If it's in the past, it's because it's supposed to be in the past. That's it. Allah Azza wa Jalla wants us to forget these things. He wants to leave them where they are. Leave them in the past. Move on with your life. It's only shaitan who holds a grudge. Shaitan holds a grudge. We don't want to be those people. Don't be the person that holds a grudge. Forget it and move on. And so he says subhanahu wa ta'ala that وَقُلْ عَسَىٰ أَن يَهْدِيَنِي رَبِّي لِأَقْرَبَ مِنْ هَذَا رَشَدًا. Always say that, you know what? Perhaps Allah will decree something better for me. In whatever it is. That I want to do this, I hope I can get this car, but I hope Allah gives me better. I really want a job, I want this specific type of job, but I hope Allah will give me better than this. And so he says subhanahu wa ta'ala that وَلَبِثُوا فِي كَهْفِهِمْ 300 سِنِينَ وَازْدَادُوا تِسْعًا. The very first time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used the word لَبِثُوا فِي كَهْفِهِمْ, that they stayed inside of their cave. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses لَبِثُوا at the beginning of this surah in verse 12. Allah uses that word. And then He uses it right here in verse number 25. So there's twice that it's used here. Verse 12 and I believe it's verse 12 and then verse 25. And when He uses that, they stayed and then they stayed. And the distance between the first they stayed, the first labithu, and the second they stayed, second labithu, is exactly 300 words. You think about this, numerical miracle of the Quran. That Allah Azza wa Jal composed the Quran and the surah in such a perfect and beautiful way that exactly 300 words are used to talk about the beginning of their stay until the end of the stay. And then the next, this ayah right here, if you count from the beginning of the ayah to the end, the verse ends with tis'an, 9. How many words are in this ayah? There are 9 words in this ayah as well. Again, this is a numerical miracle of the Quran. It's the way that the Quran is composed in such a perfect way. We're going to end with this one final verse. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, أَعْلَمُ بِمَا لَبِثُوا. Say Allah knows best how many years they stayed asleep for. This is really interesting, because we just ended the last verse and we said what? They stayed for 300 years solar and 309 lunar years. And then Allah says, by the way, say that Allah knows best how long they stayed asleep for. Allah, you just told us how long they stayed asleep for. So what's the deal? Because there will be people. The Quran says one thing, and they say that, well, actually, that's that's actually not, that's not how we're supposed to understand it. Or there will be people from the Jews and the Christians that say, well, your book says that, but our book says something else. So Allah says, here's the version of the story that's the truth. If anyone disagrees with it, at the end of the day say, you know what? Sure, God knows best. And just leave it at that. Because even though Allah gives a fact in the Quran, people will always stand up with their own ideas and their own opinions.